At 8:29 that morning, the county dispatch screen already showed owner requested removal. The owner of Harbor Bell Diner was still in the kitchen. Thomas Weller had not asked anyone to leave. He did not know Officer Derek Halden had used his name. The authentication field remained empty. Deputy Evan Sloan stood near the service counter with his terminal open. Derek's unit number appeared under initiating officer. A second line waited for the property representative. Mark it initiated. Evan kept his thumb away from the screen. 20 minutes earlier, Senator Audrey Sinclair had entered the diner alone. No staff followed her. No government vehicle waited outside. She wore a dark wool coat, practical shoes, and carried a narrow notebook. Her meeting with Governor Owen Fairchild was scheduled for later that morning. His advance office had left one voicemail. No room closure. No security hold. No reserved table. They would use any available seat. Leah Benton had written open beside the window booth on the seating slate. She poured coffee and told Audrey to choose a table. Audrey selected the booth facing Main Street. She ordered eggs, toast, and coffee. Her notebook stayed closed beside the sugar jar. She watched the room. Derek entered 11 minutes later. He accepted coffee before reaching the register. 2 customers greeted him. A third lowered his newspaper. Thomas remained behind the kitchen pass. Derek looked across the room and stopped at Audrey. He asked Leah why she had placed a stranger in the governor's booth. Leah checked the slate. No reservation card stood on the table. No state employee had requested one. A white sales representative had used the same booth the previous afternoon, while Derek sat at the counter. No rule had appeared then. Derek walked to Audrey's table. He did not ask whether she was waiting for anyone. He said the booth was being prepared for state security and pointed toward a stool near the kitchen pass. Audrey examined the open aisle and the absence of any security marker. She said she would move when a confirmed reservation existed. Derek told her Leah lacked authority when state officials were involved. Leah heard him from the coffee station. She had opened the diner. She had assigned every section. She had the voicemail. Audrey asked whether Thomas had requested her removal. Derek touched his shoulder radio. County owner wants the window booth cleared. Dispatch requested authentication from the property representative. Derek looked toward the kitchen. Open it under my unit. Audrey placed both hands beside her plate. Across the room, Renee Fowler looked at the wall clock. Renee had spent 27 years recording county hearings. She still carried a shorthand pad in her handbag. She wrote the time of the radio call. Derek entered the kitchen. Thomas listened while Derek described the governor's arrival as a security matter. Derek mentioned future inspections and the consequences of failing to cooperate. Thomas came out, wiping his hands on his apron. He had still not asked Audrey to leave. Derek spoke first. Thomas agrees. Thomas looked at Audrey, Leah, and the patrol radio on Derek's shoulder. He said nothing. Derek treated the silence as confirmation. Leah said she had seated Audrey and the booth was open. Derek warned her not to interfere. Renee wrote the time again. Radio call first. Owner questioned later. No direct request. Derek ordered Leah to remove Audrey's breakfast. She did not move. Derek reached across the table and pulled the service tray toward the aisle. Audrey released the edge before his hand touched it. The tray slid. Coffee struck the floor. A plate broke beside the booth. Toast landed beneath an empty chair. Derek raised his radio. Subject escalated the disturbance. Evan looked at the case screen. No conduct by Audrey had been entered before that sentence. A dark state sedan stopped outside. Governor Owen Fairchild entered. He saw the broken plate, Leah holding a towel, Thomas beside the kitchen pass, and Derek standing over the open case. He did not greet Audrey. He looked at the empty authentication field. Who verified the owner's request? Derek's hand remained on his radio. Derek did not answer Governor Fairchild's question. His hand remained on the radio. Coffee moved slowly between the floor tiles beneath his shoes. Governor Fairchild looked at Evan Sloan. Was the property representative authenticated? Evan turned the terminal so the screen faced him. The field remained blank. Derek stepped between them. The owner confirmed it verbally. Thomas stood near the kitchen pass with his apron still in one hand. He looked at Derek before looking at the governor. Governor Fairchild did not ask whether Audrey had been difficult. He did not ask why the plate had broken. He asked Thomas when he had requested the removal. Thomas opened his mouth, then stopped. Derek answered for him. He agreed when I explained the security concern. That was not the question, Governor Fairchild said. The front door opened behind him. Beatrice Rowe entered carrying a slim document case. She directed the State Office of Public Integrity and had been scheduled to join the governor's meeting later that morning. She saw the open dispatch case before anyone explained the broken breakfast. Beatrice asked that no one close the terminal or clear the radio channel. Derek said the situation had already been resolved. Beatrice looked at Audrey, who remained beside the window booth with coffee on one sleeve. "No," she said. "A classification has been entered. That means the sequence has to be resolved." Renee Fowler rose from her table. She did not hold up a phone. She placed her shorthand pad beside the terminal and identified herself as a retired county court reporter. Her notes began with the time Derek contacted dispatch, 8:29. The next entry recorded Derek entering the kitchen, 8:31. Thomas first appeared on the dining floor at 8:33. Renee read the final line without adding an opinion. No direct removal request from proprietor before case initiation. Derek said she could not know what Thomas had told him inside the kitchen. Renee agreed. Her record did not claim that she did. It showed that Derek had already told dispatch the owner wanted Audrey removed before he entered the kitchen to speak with the owner. Leah brought the seating slate from the host station. The window booth was marked open. No state hold appeared beside it. No reservation card had been printed. No security instruction had been attached to the morning shift notes. Derek called the slate informal. Leah went behind the register and opened the voicemail from the governor's advance office. The message played through the diner speaker. No section needed to be closed. No table needed to be reserved. The governor and his guest would use any available seating. Governor Fairchild listened without expression. Derek changed his explanation. He said a police officer did not need a written request to prepare a public location for a governor. Beatrice asked whether Derek belonged to the governor's protective detail. He did not. She asked whether the detail had contacted him. It had not. She asked whether Audrey had entered a restricted space. No restricted space existed. Each answer narrowed the distance between Derek's decision and the record he had created to support it. Beatrice requested the first radio transmission. County dispatch replayed it through Evans' terminal. Derek's voice entered the room. Owner requests removal. The dispatcher followed. Is the property representative available to authenticate? Then Derek's reply. Not at this time. Start it under my unit. Thomas lowered his head. Beatrice stopped the recording. She asked him whether he had requested Audrey's removal before that transmission. Thomas looked toward the kitchen, the register, and the front windows. For years, Derek had been able to send inspections toward businesses that resisted him. Parking complaints appeared. Late closing checks followed. Deliveries were questioned. Thomas had told himself that silence protected his employees. Now his silence had been entered as consent. No, he said. Derek turned toward him. Thomas continued before he could be interrupted. Derek had entered the kitchen after the radio call. He had mentioned state security, future inspections, and the problems that came from refusing to cooperate. Thomas had never asked police to remove Audrey. Derek said Thomas was changing his account because the governor was present. Thomas did not deny being afraid. He only repeated that the request had not come from him. Derek ordered Evan to mark proprietor confirmed. Evan looked at the timestamps. The confirmation would appear 4 minutes after the removal had been initiated. He refused to enter it. Derek invoked chain of command. Evan said the chain did not allow him to move a source backward in time. Beatrice opened the classification field. Owner requested removal disappeared. In its place, she entered. Officer originated contact. Proprietor request. Not authenticated. Audrey's name still appeared only as customer. Derek looked at her again. He asked why the governor kept waiting for her. Audrey answered for the first time since Beatrice arrived. Complete the record before you identify anyone. Beatrice saved the corrected entry. Governor Fairchild then turned toward the woman Derek had ordered away from the window. Senator Sinclair, would you prefer that our civil rights meeting continue here or at the city office? Leah stopped beside the coffee station. Thomas closed his eyes. Derek looked from the corrected record to Audrey. Her title had arrived after the evidence. It could no longer change what the evidence had already shown. Derek looked at Audrey as though her title had changed the room. It had not changed the radio transmission. It had not moved Thomas into the kitchen earlier. It had not placed an owner's request before the request existed. "I didn't know you were a senator." Audrey looked at the corrected case entry. "My position does not alter the sequence." Derek tried to explain that he had been preparing the diner for the governor. Governor Owen Fairchild did not debate his intention. He asked Beatrice Rowe what authority her office held over an officer who had created a private property removal without authenticating the property representative. Beatrice answered from the record. Derek's authority to initiate that category could be restricted pending independent review. His previous removals could be examined for the same source attribution failure. His promotion file could be held. His department could not change the original transmission or replace the corrected entry. Audrey asked to be excluded from every disciplinary decision. She was the affected citizen. Her office had also been reviewing civil rights complaints in Dunley. She would provide a factual statement, submit the damaged clothing receipt, and take no part in deciding Derek's employment. That decision removed his final defense. He could not claim that a senator had used political power to punish an officer who failed to recognize her. Beatrice entered an interim restriction under his unit profile. Derek could still respond to emergency calls. He could not initiate a private property removal, certify a proprietor's request, or direct another employee to complete the authentication field. His pending promotion review was suspended. Audrey's file was corrected from owner-requested removal to officer-originated contact proprietor request, not authenticated. A copy went to Audrey, Thomas, County Dispatch, and the Municipal Records Office. The original entry remained visible beneath it, entered before authentication. Reclassified after sequence review. A patrol supervisor arrived to remove Derek from the assignment. Derek left Harbor Bell Diner without handcuffs or a public ceremony. His uniform remained intact. The authority he had used inside the diner did not. Beatrice limited the investigation to private property removals Derek had initiated during the previous 2 years. She did not reopen every arrest or search for unrelated misconduct. The review followed one sequence. Derek initiated the removal. The proprietor's confirmation appeared later. No direct call, dispatch audio, or signed request existed before police action. 9 cases met the search criteria. 6 contained valid proprietor requests made before an officer intervened. 3 did not. A convenience store owner had agreed only after Derek mentioned liquor license inspections. A motel clerk had signed a request after the customer was already inside a patrol vehicle. A barber had refused to request removal, but Derek's report recorded the telephone conversation as approval. The barber's call had been preserved by the business phone system. His voice said no twice. 3 trespass advisories were withdrawn. 2 municipal citations connected to those removals were vacated. The affected citizens received corrected records stating that the original actions had relied on unauthenticated or coerced requests. 1 woman had been prevented from entering the motel where her belongings remained. The corrected order required the property to return them without additional fees. The barber's customer had lost access to the shop for nearly a year. The restriction was removed from the county system before the review closed. Thomas submitted a statement describing Derek's radio call, the warning about inspections, and his own failure to object when Derek used his silence as consent. The statement did not make Thomas a hero. It preserved both facts. He had been pressured. He had also allowed Audrey to stand alone because he was afraid. The county prohibited retaliatory inspections against Harbor Bell Diner during the review. Leah's statement was attached as the employee responsible for seating, and the diner could not reduce her hours because she had contradicted Derek. Renee Fowler's shorthand pages were copied into the case file. She declined requests for interviews. Evan Sloan's refusal to enter the late confirmation was reviewed by his supervisor. The county concluded that an employee could reject an instruction when the requested field lacked a verified source. 7 weeks later, the independent panel issued its findings. Derek had falsely attributed a removal request to a property owner. He had attempted to obtain confirmation only after initiating police action. He had used inspection authority to pressure business owners in 2 earlier cases. The department terminated his employment. The state licensing board revoked his law enforcement certification after a separate hearing. The order identified false source attribution and coercive confirmation as the basis. It did not mention Audrey's political office. The final reform did not begin with a speech. It began with the dispatch form. Under the Authenticated Property Removal Protocol, a proprietor or registered representative had to confirm the request through recorded dispatch audio, a verified callback, or an electronic signature. The confirmation timestamp had to appear before the removal classification. The initiating officer could not supply both the allegation and its source. If an owner agreed only after an officer raised inspections, permits, citations, or licensing consequences, the request moved automatically to an off-site supervisor. The first transmission and the proprietor's own response remained attached to the same record. Audrey and Governor Fairchild held their scheduled meeting at Harbor Bell Diner that morning. Local business owners described the requests they had accepted because refusing an officer had seemed more dangerous than losing a customer. Audrey listened. The broken plate was removed. The coffee was cleaned from the floor. Thomas refunded Audrey's breakfast and replaced the meal without turning the window booth into a memorial. Weeks later, he received the final corrected record. Beside the words property representative was an audio attachment containing his own voice. The system no longer accepted an officer's version of what an owner wanted. Breakfast returned to the window booth. The words owner requested never reached dispatch again without the owner's voice attached. This story is fictional,